When I was younger, my dad's job sent him on an assignment over in Japan to settle a business deal with a company based there. In order to lock the deal in, the company asked my dad to stay and work from their office in Japan. Naturally, my dad came home to ask my mom, my sister Abby, and me what we thought of the idea. I've never been out of the country, so I thought this would be a great experience. My mom was hesitant at first, of course. She was worried about schooling for Abby and I, but after some convincing, she gave the go-ahead to start packing. I remember learning about the rich history of Japan in my global studies class. I didn't know anyone who had the opportunity to go live in a foreign country or even experience a different culture. I didn't have many friends to begin with, so there wasn't anyone who was going to miss me anyway. When my dad was over in Japan during the business deal, he took the liberty of looking at possible homes for us, if we agreed to move over, of course. Boy, did he go all out. After he showed us the pictures online, we all agreed that it was perfect. The house was a little old, but big. It had a small farm behind the house, and a rather large lake that was shared between a few properties. "I can't wait to go," I told my dad. He smiled. "Good, I'm glad," he said. "It's definitely an amazing place. You're gonna love it there." After a few weeks of packing and preparation, we boarded a flight to Japan. That was the end of our normal, perfect lives. When we landed in Tokyo, we were met by a taxi driver within the terminal, holding a sign that read, "The Diamond Family." "That's us," Dad exclaimed with a grin. "Hello. I'm Dave," the driver said. "I'll be taking you to your new home." I couldn't help but smile. "This is awesome," I whispered to my mom. She returned with a smile. "All right, gang, hop in," Dad said. "What about all of our stuff?" Abby asked. She could be so annoying sometimes, but that's what happens when you have a little sister. "It's being shipped over, Abs," I said, annoyed. "We won't be getting it for another couple of days." "It'll just give us a reason to explore our new home before we have to unpack everything," Mom said reassuringly. After Abby was convinced, we piled into the cab and sped off to our new life. The house was more beautiful than in the photos online. We did a quick look around, sorted out whose room was whose, and went outside to explore. The farm was so quaint, but something seemed off about the tiny area. Instead of a variety of crops being grown, there were only cucumber plants. "That's odd," I thought to myself. "It's not much of a farm." Abby and I walked around the plants, inspecting the above-average dark green vegetables, when we noticed movement in the bushes near the cucumbers. "What is that?" Abby asked anxiously. "I don't know, Abs," I said. "Stay here while I go check it out." Abby nodded, and I crept towards the bushes. As I edged closer, the bushes began to shake violently. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. I started to push through the dense shrubbery when I heard a loud yell and a quick thump from behind the bushes. I forced myself through to find a middle-aged man on his back, flailing in frustration. "Hi there," I said. The man looked up, seemingly embarrassed. "Oh, hello," he said. "I didn't see you there." "How?" I asked, annoyed. "You didn't hear me call out before?" The man raised a hand to his ear and pointed to a wireless earbud. "Sorry, I didn't mean to startle you," he said. "You must be Mary Diamond. I'm George. I take care of the farm here." "My dad never said anything about you," I said, concerned. Within that moment, Dad was already standing behind me. "Mary? What are you doing in there?" he asked. I turned quickly. "Dad, there's a man back there, saying that he knows us. You didn't say anything about him." He had a puzzled look on his face, which made me start to panic. But then George called out from behind the bushes, "Hey, Mr. Diamond, it's George." He tried waving a hand over the tall shrubs. "Oh," Dad exclaimed. "I completely forgot. George helps out on the farm. His family's lived around this area for generations. What are you working on, George?" I could hear George rustling around on the other side of the bush. "I'm just trying to uproot this shrub, but it's giving me a hard time," he laughed. "That's just weird," I glared at my dad. "He really startled us, and you didn't even say anything about him." "I'm sorry, Mary. I really just forgot. Come on, let's go inside and see what Mom's up to." The rest of the day went by as normal, as it could. I didn't really feel like doing much until I remembered about the lake on the other side of the property. I stepped outside and realized it already started to get dark. "I'll just go down to the lake for a little while," I said to myself. My mom called out from the house, "Mary, where are you going?" I rolled my eyes. "Just to the lake, Mom." "You should bring your sister with you," she answered. "Okay, Abby, let's go," I yelled. "I'm coming," Abby said, emerging from the house. We walked down to the lake together, not saying much. I looked out onto the water. "Wow, it's peaceful here," I said silently. "What's that?" Abby yelled, pointing to something moving on the surface of the water. Whatever it was circling through the water, seemingly agitated. "What are you two doing?" I nearly jumped out of my skin. I spun around to see George with a weird look of fear and concern on his face. "George, what are you doing?" I asked angrily. His face softened a bit. "You really shouldn't be down here," he said with a concerned tone. "We just wanted to check out the lake before it got dark," I shot back. "You guys should really head back to the house," George said persistently. "Fine," I said. "Come on, Abby, let's go." I took my sister's hand and dragged her back to the house. I walked into my new room and laid down on the bed. Why is this place so weird? I asked myself. A feeling of frustration washed over me as I started to feel a little homesick. It wasn't great back at our old house, but it was still familiar. Through my anger, I started to feel myself slowly drift off into a deep sleep. I didn't realize how tired I was after everything that happened today, but I didn't fight it. I awoke suddenly. My entire room was dark. The only light that shone was that of the pale moonlight shimmering through the window on the other side of the room. I must have been out for hours, I thought to myself. I looked at my phone, and the time said 3:30 a.m. I started to turn over to go back to sleep, when I noticed movement outside the window. I glanced quickly across the room. That's when I saw it, standing in the window, staring at me. It was too dark to really see anything, except for its odd-shaped silhouette. It raised a strange-looking hand to the window and slowly waved it back and forth at me. I let out a horrified scream. My parents burst into the room. Dad was armed with a baseball bat. "What's going on?" he demanded. I could barely speak. I pointed to the window. "Something's out there," I stammered. "It was watching me." My dad opened the window and stuck his head outside. "I don't see anything," he said. Maybe it was just a dream, Mom chimed in. It's a new house, and things can be a little scary, especially for your first night here. I nodded my head, still shaken by what I thought I saw. Are you okay to be in here? Mom asked. Yeah, I should be, I responded. I laid back down and closed my eyes. I really hope that was a dream. The next day, we set out on a family adventure through the town. We visited many small shops and interesting sights. As weird as my first experience here was, this little town was pretty cool. When we got back to the house, George finally managed to uproot the giant bush that he'd been wrestling with the day before. Why did you want to take that down? I asked curiously. George smiled politely. To make room for more cucumbers, he said. Why do you need so many cucumbers? Abby chimed in. The smile on George's face slowly disappeared. We have to grow them to keep you safe, he replied seriously. That response struck fear in my heart. Was that you staring at me through my window last night? I asked George. George's face turned pale, and the look of fear we saw on his face yesterday returned. You saw it? He asked. Did you converse with it? I couldn't believe we were having this conversation. No, of course not, I said. Good, George responded. They can be tricky. What are you talking about, George? Just don't give them your attention. And please, don't go near the lake. With that, he hurried off to the bush he discarded. He's kinda creepy, Abby observed. That guy is nuts, I exclaimed. Don't go near him if you're by yourself, Abby. She nodded, and we went inside the house. We spent the rest of the day inside with our parents. There really wasn't anything to do around the house, and there was a surprising lack of kids in our neighborhood. Mom and Dad tried to entertain us with board games we packed, but all the good stuff was still being shipped. The hours rolled by, and the sun had already set. All right, girls, time for bed, Dad announced. I didn't argue. I got up, kissed my parents goodnight, and wandered into my room. I was passed out as soon as my head hit the pillow. I shot up out of my bed when I heard a tapping noise at the window. I looked at my phone. It said 3:30 a.m. I shot a quick glance over to the source of the noise, but there was nothing there. The window was slightly open. Dad must have forgotten to close it last night, I said to myself. I got up, shut the window, and sleepily returned to bed. I rolled over to get comfortable and started to drift off into sleep. About an hour went by when I noticed a slight wave of air beating on the back of my head, and then small drips of what felt like water hitting my face. As I came to, I felt a strong, cold grip squeezing my arm, and a strange, sinister voice say,
Come play with us, down by the water.